Hey guys, Brett Weiss here. Welcome to another video. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It is super helpful. Recently, someone named Jack reached out to me through Instagram with a series of questions, which I'm going to answer for you guys here. He is doing this for a school assignment, an independent study. Now, obviously, I'm not going to share any of the personal correspondence. These are just general questions that anyone could ask, but he's going to use them specifically for his independent study assignment in school. He said the teacher said he could use any book, he could refer to any book and reach out to that author. And he wanted to use my 100 greatest book, the latest one, which I just found incredibly flattering. I really appreciate it. This happens from time to time. Someone will reach out to me, maybe a student in school, or sometimes for someone's job. They want to interview me or use my book with research or whatever and message me. And this is always so cool and so flattering. So I thought, as you know, I'm answering these questions anyway for Jack, I might as well put them here on YouTube so you guys could hear the answer too. And again, this doesn't interfere with this study or anything like that. These are just general questions about gaming and writing and all that kind of stuff. So I thought I would share them with you here. Thank you so much, Jack, for asking these questions and, you know, just being cool and, you know, appreciating my book and reaching out to me. I really appreciate it. That's awesome. So let's get to these questions. All right, Jack's first question was, what are my thoughts on 1988 to 1998? Your main opinion. Now, I assume he's talking about the book, and he's probably also talking about just this era of gaming. I find it a fascinating era. The peak of the NES, 88, 89, 90, I mean, you had Contra, Super Mario Bros. 3, and so many other incredible games. And then the transition to 3D, sometimes very bumpy, sometimes extremely smooth and great. Just a fascinating era. It's just, as far as my main opinion on it goes, it was just an incredible time for gaming. And what really stands out to me is the console wars, the Genesis versus the Super Nintendo. Two of the greatest consoles in the history of the industry battling it out. What an incredible time. Maybe the greatest console war in history as far as quality of the systems and just the competitiveness. Amazing. My main opinion about this is that the Genesis versus Super Nintendo plus the introduction of the PlayStation, the PS1. So I guess I have two main opinions on this era. Just incredible. What a system that really brought gaming into the modern era with the 3D graphics, with the mature themes, with the more advanced storytelling and the cinematic visuals and storytelling and all of that. Just an amazing era. 1988 to 1998. Just fascinating. And number two, your team wrote the book during the pandemic, correct? What was that experience like? Yes, team, I did have a lot of contributing writers on this project, which was just amazing. It made the book is all the better for it with this variety of opinions, a variety of perspectives, variety of anecdotes, different people passionate about different games. Just love this aspect of the book. And yes, during the pandemic, I actually did a lot of writing. And I'm going to go beyond that a little bit. So yeah, I was working on a couple of different video game books during the pandemic, and it was incredibly cathartic just to be able to write and be productive and to work during this time period where a lot of people, jobs were closed down. Now, yeah, it was nice not having to work at all for a little while. I say nice. I mean, during the pandemic, it was scary, and I was scared for my friends, and I knew people that were sick. I don't mean that. I just meant just having a different way of life for a little while, more family time. We cooked together, we played board games together, more than usual because everybody's home. Now, I felt very privileged during this time because my wife and son, Ryan, teach in school at this point, and they were, you know, they still got their salary and were at home. So not like a lot of people. A lot of people did not get paid and they just couldn't go into work. And it was a very scary, a very tense time for people. I did the best I could. I made the best I could out of the situation. Since I'm working at home, I could continue working. And like I said, my wife and son continued getting paid during this time, and I felt extremely privileged. I felt so sorry for the people that were just completely out of the work and that were struggling, you know, month to month to try to make it during this time period. And like I said, we knew people that got sick and died, and it was just horrible, tragic. situation the country and as individuals will never fully recover from, although we are going on as best as we can. But writing during this time was so amazing, so cathartic. Like I said, just to feel productive, to feel connected online with some of my fellow writers, to get up and just feel productive and work every morning, and just I was very fortunate to be a freelance writer during this time, being able to do my job. So it was something else. It was tragic and sad, but it was also hopeful and fulfilling in some ways. Very mixed bag. Anyway, it was something else. It was something I'll never forget. Number three, during the main process, number three, going unedited here today, guys. During the main writing process of yours, did you have to replay any of the games you talked about? If so, which ones are your most favorite? Wow. Yes, I definitely replayed these games. I wanted to get just a fresh take on each one, make sure they still hold up well today. Picking my favorites from this era is tough because there's so many great titles. Let's just go to the table of contents and I'll pick out a few favorites. You guys know Mr. Do's my favorite game, so that one's in here, obviously. The Super Nintendo version was released for home consoles during this time. I absolutely love Blazing Lasers, Castlevania 3. Let's see, Donkey Kong Country. My wife and I played that one for hours and hours. Such a great cooperative game. Let's see, The Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, my favorite Zelda title. Mega Bomberman. Anytime my nephew Chris comes home from Japan, we play Mega Bomberman with my kids. Great 4-player action. Let's see, Road Rash is a lot of fun. Rock and Roll Racing. Probably not among my favorites, but maybe the next notch down. Sonic the Hedgehog. Holy cow, I love that game. And Sonic 2 is even better. Now, I put Sonic the Hedgehog in the original game in this book instead of Sonic 2 because it's sort of more iconic, and without Sonic 2, Sonic 1 wouldn't be in here. Love Super Castlevania 4. Yes, I've got a lot of favorites in here. Thank you for that question. Zombies Ate My Neighbors. Man, what an amazing era. So yeah, I definitely played these games, and I want the main thing with these 100 greatest books are the game's still fun to play today. Now, he asked what my favorite chapter in the book is. Anything I'm particularly proud of? Yes, absolutely. I've actually got a couple of favorite chapters in here. One is obviously Mr. Do being my favorite game. It was one that I really felt passionate writing about and had a lot of fun writing. And then the next would be Streets of Rage 2. I loved writing about that one because I have such fond memories of playing Streets of Rage 2 with my son when he was young. There's the third page. We had a blast playing the 2-player option on that. We played it over and over again. And sometimes I'd say, hey, let's play the first Streets of Rage or maybe Streets of Rage 3. And 9 times out of 10, Ron would want to play Streets of Rage 2. And recently, we have been playing Streets of Rage 4 for the Switch. And man, how cool has that been? They say you can't go home again, but with Streets of Rage 4, you could at least kind of recapture some of that lost time period when the kids were little. So that's been awesome. So yeah, I'm very proud of those chapters. Now we switch over to what Jack, thanks Jack, what are your favorite video game, or what he calls fun questions. He's asking me 4 questions in the fun category. What is your, as opposed to, I guess, the more serious book category, specifically focusing on that book. Good stuff, Jack. I appreciate it. He asked me, what's my favorite video game console today? Video game and console. So let's go to that. Like I said, Mr. Do. Favorite game of all time, but my favorite game of the modern era, modern in quotes, like Dreamcast to the present, like I've told you guys, is Maximo Ghost to Glory for the PS2. Phenomenal game. Just love it. Great 3D hack and slash. Brutal, difficult, challenging, old school. It's a ton of fun. Number 2, you're a collector of retro games, correct? Absolutely. If so, how much do you think your collection is worth? I have no idea. Any estimations of how many games you have? Now, I don't have a lot of the rares. He also asked me what's the rarest game in my collection. I don't have a lot of the grails. Really, I don't have any of the grails, like the NWC carts for the NES. I don't have, like Little Samson or Surprise at Dinosaur Peak, some of the most famous rare games. When occasionally I get a rare game, through some wheeling and dealing swap, whatever, something I had a long time ago, I've sold some of my more expensive games just because I felt, do I want this pile of cash or this game? I haven't played this in a long time. Occasionally I'll sell a game if it prices itself out of my collection. I keep everything I want to play and I keep all my pre-NES stuff, but I've sold some of my pricier stuff, and I've never actually counted the games in my collection, so I really don't know. I've probably got 50 or 60 consoles and maybe 2 or 3,000 games currently. I buy and sell a lot. If I would have kept all the games I've bought over the years for research for my books or just to play or temporarily or whatever, I would have probably over 10,000. But today I just probably have 2 or 3,000, just that many. Anyway, so that's that. The rarest item in my collection, I don't even know. I've got some pretty obscure Atari 2600 games. Technically, these are probably some of the rarest games in my collection because they're so obscure, they're so old, and people they didn't sell a ton back in the day. Like these Zonix double enders for the 2600. These are really fascinating. Each side has a game you can play, you could plug in. And then some of these others like Marine Wars for the 2600 and Pooyan, arcade conversion for the 2600. Skeet Shoot, extremely obscure. These aren't super valuable, but they do have a little worth, but they're rare. They're hard to find. Today, they're not very highly sought after, but they're obscure. And I mean, who kept those? Those are old and didn't sell a ton to begin with. So those are some of the rare items in my collection. Number 4, this is a big question. What made you want to write books in general? Could you talk about the full process? Now, as I've recently posted on my website, brettweisswords.com, and I've talked about before, I grew up loving books and loving reading. Even though I wasn't always the best student, because I would have a hard time sitting still or concentrating, I probably had ADHD, which you could probably, maybe some people would say I have that today, but it was undiagnosed back then. I was just wormy, as they said, because it was hard for me to sit still. It was hard to concentrate. But I always loved books and I always loved reading. And my mom would take me to used bookstores and we would go to thrift stores and things. And I would look through the magazines and books. And I bought Peanuts, paperbacks, the great Charles Schulz. I bought Mad Magazine. I got Dynamite Magazine. The first novel I read was War of the Worlds. My parents had encyclopedia sets on their shelves. I would read those. I loved the Guinness Book of World Records. I loved different kinds of 100 greatest books. There's a particular 100 greatest science fiction book by Bill Warren that directly influenced my 100 greatest book. So yeah, from a very young age, I wanted to write book. I wanted to write. I wanted to be a writer growing up. We had a typewriter in the living room, and I would play with that, and I would look at all these reference books. So my interest in reference books and my interest in video games sort of collided, where I write video game reference books. And the full process, I mean, with gaming books, typically I'll play the games at night and make notes, and then the next morning get up and write about these games. But currently I have a full-time day job, but when I was a full-time freelance writer for over 20 years, this was my process. I would, if I was writing about a game, I used to do book reviews and movie reviews, and I even, reviewed some albums and things. I would do the entertainment part at night, playing the game, listening to the music, watching the movies, whatever, what have you. I would do that at night, and then I would get up, early the next morning when my mind was fresh. I love writing early in the morning. Steaming hot cup of Earl Grey tea, like Picard, and that's where I started drinking Earl Grey tea when he would talk about that. When he would order that on Star Trek: The Next Generation from the food processor. What do they call that? Can't remember off the top of my head. Anyway, I'm tired. So gosh, just a ton of research involved with these books, hunting down, I would order stacks of manuals online. I would buy games like crazy in order to play them. I'd use emulation, the whole 9 yards, just a ton of research, a ton of game playing, a ton of writing. And, I started writing back in the 1990s and, I wasn't great starting out. And but yeah, it took a lot of time. So just advice, read a lot, write a lot. That's the only way to hone your craft. So anyway, I hope I've answered some of your questions in a manner that you would expect. I hope some of this information was useful. I really appreciate you asking, Jack. That's Very cool of you, and all the rest of you, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Ask me more questions. Feel free to comment in this video. If you have any questions about books, writing, reading, gaming, collecting, anything like that, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will talk to you in another video.